No, sorry. I was just laughing at how I just added the bot just so I could announce my own stream. Anyway, welcome back again to Higurashi. Oh, we're almost done with this chapter after doing like every playthrough I finished during the summer with one chapter. We actually, apparently from what I looked up, there's like 3 more left, so we're almost done. And considering I just recently watched the anime, despite how rushed it was, yeah, we're getting to that point where Keiji is going a bit loony, and we're gonna get started from here. Mion and others, having to set up for the Watanagashi festival or something, invited me along, but I refused. Of course I did. How could they be taking it easy and setting up for a festival in this situation? Mion had a lot of nerve. The first thing I did when I got back was take a shower. Not because I wanted to wash up sweat. It was because I wanted to be even calmer. Oh, I could already hear it. I already understood this, but killing that man would be so very easy. The really hard thing would be not getting arrested for it, so we could get our peaceful days back. Let me play something real quick of how I'm feeling right now, reading this. Oh no! There you go. I agree, Joseph. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't easy. Japan's police force have the highest arrest rate in the world. You know that back in 1983, I would need to deceitfully pull off the perfect crime, and it couldn't be a half-hearted attempt. Still, it wasn't 100%. Even the best police force in the world couldn't have a 100% arrest rate. I've read a lot of articles on the trials with people brought up on false charges. They do a lot to determine whether they really were false accusations, but figuring out who the real criminal was is usually out of the question. And that meant perfect crimes did exist. In fact, perfect crimes were sort of like works of art. They could even be respected and revered. You just had to look at the sorry. You know what? Let me just look up these words and just have text-to-speech help me.
Inundation.
Okay, thank you. Inundation of mystery novels everywhere throughout history. They dealt with all sorts of difficult-to-solve incidents involving secret rooms and alibis and stuff. But they all wanted to show one thing. They wanted to show the beauty of a perfect crime. There was something divine in the flawlessness of the word perfect. Yes, perfect crimes were skills of the gods. And in that sense, the serial freak deaths they were calling the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I understood. They must have been the works of gods. Each one appeared to have been resolved, but they couldn't stop it from happening every year. Yeah, skills belonging only to gods, those are perfect crimes. And I would be setting up my own crime before Oyashiro-sama's series of perfect crimes 4 years in the running. If I were to put it boldly, I was challenging a god. Full heartiness would be needed to make the decision, but I needed to calm to be calm, cool, colder than ice, to put that plan together. Kill him like a flame, but as systematic as ice. Starting now, I need to retain both of those ideas within me. Modeling my crimes after a mystery novel wasn't actually a bad thing to focus on. Sometimes kidnapping involving disturbing original methods that made it into the newspapers were used as a basis for the novels after the person was arrested. Stuff like that made it into the news. Day and night, for a very long time, mystery novels authors polish and refine their most fantastic artistic crimes. Imitating that could be a shortcut to planning the perfect crime in a short period of time. Of course, I haven't read enough mystery novels to act all high and mighty about them. The one who really liked mystery novels was my mom. She'd read every well-known mystery novel from overseas, from past and present. Every time she watched mystery shows, she would always criticize them as having cheap tricks or being poorly thought out. I wonder what the perfect crime would mean to her. What do I think the most well-done perfect crime in all mystery novels I've read is? Yeah. Well, you read quite a lot of them, right? Figured you might know a lot about them. It's more fun to read them to find out. If I told you all the tricks right off the bat, they'd be no fun anymore. It wasn't like I was asking for my own amusement. She was deflecting the question, so I would somehow butter her up first and draw out an answer. Of course, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is my top recommendation, and Murder on the Orient Express used some great bold tricks too. Of course, I didn't see it coming at all. I didn't want to know which novels you liked. I wanted to know about the trick that made you the most surprised. If it really was if it was really a perfect trick, the detectives wouldn't be able to solve the case though. And that was true. Then there'd be no point. Mystery novels are enjoyable because of the process of the mystery getting solved. If it was unsolvable, it wouldn't make a very good topic for a novel. I get it. Yeah, you're right. If the main character can't solve it, it wouldn't be much of a story, huh? Was I being too simplistic? A mystery novel was basically a game. They were written so you can get to the goal, so that you could solve them. But I couldn't use something so optimistic. It needed to be the be-all, end-all of tricks, so that we could... why is my screen doing that weird thing? So that we could, without a doubt, return to our old lives. By the way, KG, do you understand that truly perfect crimes don't even become stories? Mom looked at me intellectually and grinned impishly. I'd never gotten to read it, but apparently one time, a long time ago, Mom had written her own mystery novel and submitted it for some mystery novel award. Apparently she was really into it. Don't even become stories. What does that mean? KG, what are the essential parts of a story? A beginning, a middle, and an end. Correct. The beginning, of course, is especially important. If there is no beginning, then the story never starts. Well, yeah. If nothing happened, nothing would begin. Right. Nothing happened, so there wouldn't even be an incident. Detectives wouldn't be called, so there wouldn't be any mystery. There would be no mystery, so there would be no solution. In other words, it would be a perfect it would be the ultimate perfect crime. Wait, wait a second. Could you explain that again? My mom just told me something absurd. And she was saying it so smoothly too, so I kind of tuned her out, but yeah, sorry about that. I'm just checking the volume. There we go, balance. And she was saying it so smoothly too, so I kind of tuned her out, but she said something extremely important now. It's not really that difficult to understand. The incident just has never come to light, that's all. Just to never come to light. For example, how about this? Say there's an old man living deep in a forest nobody goes into. Uh-huh. And one day the old man gets killed by an axe. And let's say the criminal was the old man's son. He went to the old man's house and they were drinking together, but they got into a fight and he killed him. What an extremely cheap plot. It was an impulsive crime without a bit of planning. It was pretty far from a perfect crime. But Keiji, the house was really, really deep in the forest. So deep in the mountains that no one would ever go out that far. Then his son would go back to town and say that the old man was doing fine. What about that is a perfect crime? Keiji? This incident would only begin when it was found out that the old man was killed. If nobody visited the old man's house after that, that beginning would never occur. The beginning would never occur. So basically, the story wouldn't start. The incident wouldn't come to light, and they wouldn't call in the detectives, and nobody would be suspicious in the first place, so there'd be no mystery. They think the old man was still living by himself deep in the forest, and the old man's face would appear in the sky, and that would be it. Something like that, you know. That's amazing. That's a pretty great trick. But it wouldn't be a novel. Mystery novels are for entertainment, after all. They can't be instructions for instruction manuals for perfect crimes. I was trying hard to talk cheerfully to fool her, but inside I was excited. Special tools, strange geography, mysterious drugs, traps involving huge sums of cash. None of them were needed for perfect crimes. The important thing was that there wasn't a beginning. As long as the incident didn't come to light, it would be fine. Speaking broadly, if I killed him without anyone finding out, and disposed of the corpse somewhere no one could find, it would basically already be a perfect crime. Of course, if someone ended up and vanished one day, all of a sudden, people would get suspicious. But that didn't apply to this man. Last year, after their aunt died, he ran away from the village in fear of Oyashiro-sama. When the night of Watanagashi came around again, everyone would think that he ran away in fear again. I mean, he had been living with a lover of his in town. No matter what it felt like, when he vanished, no one would be suspicious. People hated him, after all. No one would care where he went if he disappeared. When I thought about it like that, it got easier and easier to imagine killing him. There was no point in thinking inside my house anymore. I left, getting my bike out of the garage. For now, it didn't matter where I was going. I just rolled through the wind, trying to calm my excitement by feeling the cool air on my body. how I'm feeling reading this again.
Oh my god!
Like I always say, Joestar is the best JoJo. Where I kill him, how I do it, what time, and how to dispose of the corpse. If I just had those 4 things, I could get a good plan going. I was so surprised at how little there was to decide that I shivered. I'd been completely prepared to build this humongous plan over a really long period of time. But if I could just get these little things in order, I could put it into motion. Today was Saturday. I would have to kill him on the night of Watanagashi. So as long as I was standing in front of Oyashiro-sama, and I only had 24 hours remaining, Satoko, just hang on for 24 more hours. I can't even imagine having to suffer through even more. But please, hold out a little longer. I know you can't even last another second. I know that. But please, just hold out. Your Nini will save you for sure. Outside, it was still early enough for the cicadas to be crying. Early afternoon, evening was still a long way off. I looked at the sky. At some point, it had gotten cloudy. Come to think of it, hang on. Come to think of it, as I left the house, I heard the TV at the weather. And hi, Cal, how are you doing tonight? Come to think of it, I left the house. I heard on the TV that the weather forecast was calling for a chance of rain on Sunday. I'm doing good as well. The sky was the color of lead. Yeah. Just reading some Higurashi. I'm actually almost done with this chapter. Well, volume, of course. If I heard a little bit of thunder, I definitely have expected a sudden evening shower. That music, though. My first destination was school. Before explaining why I was there, I needed to explain what method for killing that man I had decided upon. Ah, I see. Good luck, though. I decided that the most suitable death, you're welcome, the one I needed to give him, was the same as last year's curse. The same as the punishment their aunt had received, being beaten to death. And thanks. Wouldn't beating him to death be somewhat unreliable? You may think that stabbing him with a blade would be more reliable. But this was something I had chosen after a lot of thought. You just needed to think realistically. The law, it prohibited carrying any blades longer than 10 centimeters, I think. So the blades available to me, though long enough, and thanks, though long enough, were limited to things shorter than a ruler. You can probably understand how tricky it would be with such a short reach to go up against an opponent that might fight back. Yep, pizza time. And in that case, using a weapon with reach would be far more effective. It might not have the same precision, but you just had to hit the guy until you killed him. Both options resulted in death. With that settled, what is the weapon that would be the most terrifying force behind it that is also easy to carry around? By this point, you should immediately think of a metal baseball bat. I don't need to explain how terrifying a metal baseball bat can be as a weapon. Of special note is the fact that you can carry one around in broad daylight, and thanks again, and not be thought of as suspicious. Just those 2 points would have been enough to have choose a metal bat for my weapons. Yeah, indeed. But there's one more reason for choosing a metal bat in particular. I will speak about it later. After school that Saturday, my classmates were still having fun playing in the schoolyard. Oh, I see. That's a shame. Apples are always good along with bananas. I could show up there and it would be the same as always, so nobody would think I'm suspicious. Getting my hands on the weapon without looking suspicious was actually a factor I couldn't ignore. I didn't normally play baseball, so if I went to a sports store looking for a metal bat, it would definitely be suspicious. I can't let there be a beginning to the story, so I needed to really be careful even about that. That left school at the location which my appearance wouldn't be suspicious. I would acquire that weapon. I checked inside the classroom through the window, but of course nobody was there. The only students who would stay in there were me and the others when doing club activities. Without us, the classroom after school was just an empty, unused room. Without glancing around nervously, as if I'd just gone to get something I'd forgotten, I casually went in the entrance. It looked like the teacher was busy with paperwork in the teacher's lounge. I didn't see her in the hallway. Naturally, yet quickly as a shadow, I entered the classroom. The empty room was full of a strange stagnant air you couldn't feel normally. An empty classroom with nobody here. Maybe no one was around. The desks creaked about of their own accord, licking the floors clean of dirt. If I suddenly stepped into a place like that, would the desk, in their surprise, fly at me, crush my bones, and eat me alive? That's ridiculous. I felt regret at wasting valuable thinking on stupid delusions. The student lockers were lined up in the back of the classroom. The one I was looking for wasn't my own. It was a forbidden locker, one I had accidentally discovered one day. Here it is, Hojo. This has to be it. If one person has one locker, then why would only Satoko have two? I'd made a fuss about it once. After that, I learned it was Satoshi's locker, and he had the same last name as her. But of course, though it was a locker for a student no longer here, looking inside it was still a shameless act. But one time, I let my curiosity get the better of me and took a peek inside. Inside, it was average and worthless. At the time, I hadn't been interested, so until now, I'd forgotten what had been in it. But now that dare I say it, awakened, I remembered the thing that had been there. Scrape. I opened the locker with a stench of mold and sweat wafted out, like a gym storehouse that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. My face puckered up at the stench, but I looked for it. Yes! Satoshi was on the coach's baseball team. Inside the locker was a Hinamizawa uniform, and it. The one Satoshi used. The metal bat. Yes! This was the reason I wanted to choose this bat. This murder will be carried out by me. But this wasn't originally my role. It was Satoshi's. But I would stand in for him. and call myself Satoko's Nini. It was one of the rules for standing in for him. I reached for the metal bat and grasped it firmly. It was light, and yet its tip had enough heft in it, enough to easily imagine the horror if it brought down with all my might. Satoshi, I'll give you one last chance to save your sister. Lend me your strength. You're a coward, but I will stand in for you. So if you still care even a little bit about her, you will lend me your strength. There is no more suitable weapon in the world for putting that man to death than your bat. Now, I just needed to figure out where to hide it. Tomorrow, before the act, I would just stop by the school and grab it. But I couldn't ignore the possibility someone would see me bringing it home and think it was strange. But if I left it here, there wouldn't be a problem. Plus, tomorrow was Sunday. Not only that, it was the day of the biggest festival in the whole village. Nobody would be coming to school. I left out the entrance and went over to a construction vehicle parked nearby. We'd been warned by our teacher not to touch it just for laughs, so none of the kids would come near the vehicle either. They wouldn't, because if she found out they touched it, they'd be in big trouble. I quietly hid it in the shadow of the vehicle. The chances of someone operating the vehicle tomorrow were slim to none, because tomorrow was Sunday. Government workers had the day off, and from what my classmates had said, the thing had been left here for years now. Alright, good luck on your match though. Machines, and thanks by the way, machines that haven't been moved in years. Yeah, and you know I'm a sniper in co-op PvE as well, Cal. If only I found someone to play the Borderlands game with. Machines that haven't been moved in years, you can't just suddenly start them up again. So I was almost definitely fine. I see. I'm sure you're better than me, because I could barely get any kills as a sniper in PvP. So I was almost definitely fine in this case. The sunlight was piercingly hot. My head grew faint for a moment. Had the heat been this harsh for the entire day, a moment of dulled thoughts like this was a moment of carelessness. I gave myself a couple hits in the head, then looked around warily. Okay, next, how to dispose of the corpse. Hang on.
Oh no!
I don't know why. I think I'm gonna be using that a lot. Disposing of the corpse. The ultimate way of not to create a beginning was not to let the corpse be found. It was more important than killing him. Thinking on it vaguely, the first thing that came to mind was the swamp. Onigafuchi, the dreadful bottomless swamp revered even now, that appeared in the legends of Onigafuchi village. Yes, the swamp called Onigafuchi was here first, and then the village took its name to become Onigafuchi village. In other words, the swamp was the origin of Onigafuchi village. No one, no matter who it was, would float back to the surface of this bottomless swamp. Everyone would be swallowed down into the land of demons below the earth. That was how the stories went. If I was trying to copy Oyashiro-sama, then I felt that fury demanded I discard the remains and the weapon into the swamp. But they have said it's bottomless. But I didn't actually know. And the people say large creatures like humans produce a lot of gas when they rot. Granting a lot of buoyancy, hopefully I pronounced that right. It was why using fairly heavy objects to hold them people down didn't work. Come to think of it, with the curse the year before last, Rika-chan's mother drowned herself in the swamp. And the criminal behind the dismemberment went missing for a year of the first curse too. It was rumored he'd tried to discard the body in the swamp and accidentally drowned it. I never heard of the corpse coming back up or them finding it. Then, shouldn't I choose to discard the corpse there too? I could discard the weapon there, and then, for example, if her uncle came out on a motorcycle and attacked, it would be convenient to get rid of the bike too. I knew that Satoko's uncle generally used a motorcycle for transportation, but as for the corpse, after a lot of worrying, I decided not to discard the corpse in the swamp. The drowning, suicide, and accident were both rumors. Nobody knew if they actually happened. There was no lack of false rumors about the drowning suicide anyway, and it was possible the murderer hadn't been found there and was still on the run. That meant no one had ever confirmed the corpse being dropped in there and then not coming back up. And then what would I do now with the body? I thought it might be interesting to go with the first incident, cut him to pieces and hide him, but the preparations and work for dismembering a human body would be difficult given the amount of time I had. With that out of the question, I arrived at the conclusion to go with the more orthodox method of burying the body. And then where I would bury it was the question where I would kill him. Of course, I wanted my time in proximity to the body at the minimum. With that in mind, I wanted to dig the hole to dump the body in beforehand and to make the location of the act and the hole close together. The choice of where to plan the crime that I needed to be absolutely careful and thorough with. Actually, let me check real quick. I'm just curious about how many more tips I have left. Okay. No, I got 5 more left. Okay. I'm not imagining that, am I? Yeah, let me restart the game real quick, because that is a bit bizarre. Yeah, it was a bit bizarre. Alright, load. It had to be somewhere nobody would witness it, and a place with hiding places for a sneak attack. I could dig a hole for the body right there, and I go over the possibilities in my head of the various destinations her uncle would head to from Satoko's house. I imagined a map of the area in my head, and then found a place that fulfilled those conditions so easily it was almost unbelievable. A bit of a back road that went through the woods. I didn't think her uncle would go deeper into the mountains of Yagoji. I think that's how I'm pronouncing it. Yagoji, because he was silent. On a whim. If he was going somewhere, he'd pass through these woods first, and nobody used this way back unless they had something to do at Satoko's house, or 1 or 2 other places. This path was fantastically ideal, as few people used it. I would wait for him in these woods. Would an ambush actually be possible? I went into the trees and tried really hiding myself in a few places. It was extremely quiet. My senses could be sharpened here to their maximum amount. I didn't know when he'd come, but I'd wait right here for Satoko's uncle. I actually had some trouble coming to that decision. The question arose of whether I should somehow call the man out. Was there a risk I'd be taking by luring him here? That man made Satoko do all the shopping and errands. He seldom left on his own business. He wouldn't leave unless I worked out a plan to force him to, would he? That was the question. Tomorrow was the Watanagashi festival. Would he go out for the festival, or would he stay inside? If he stayed inside, how would I drag him out of his house? That's right. Wouldn't he make Satoko go to the festival? Satoko would go to the festival. Meanwhile, I would call the man. This is the Okinomiya police station. We have the young lady from your house. Could you come and pick her up immediately? It didn't have to be the police. This is the clinic. The young lady from your house has been injured. Please come and pick her up. Yes, that would work too. If I claimed to be the police or the hospital, told him to come and then hung up on him, he'd rush there, trying to figure out what was going on, wouldn't he? And just the other day, he was visited by a probation officer. He wouldn't suddenly grumble about having to get his niece and not go. It would look like child neglect. The man had no skills useful around the house. Satoko, his slave, was an essential part of his daily life. Conclusion. If he went out to the festival, I would attack him here on his way there or back. If he didn't, I would lure him out by phone. If luring him out by phone was my first step, I would need to be sure Satoko would go to the festival, leaving the house. It would be convenient if I could make Mion take Satoko to the festival. She said her aunt was a district welfare officer. In other words, an ally to the probation officer. If I somehow incited Mion to take Satoko to the festival with her, well, being who she was, she used that fact and get her there. Satoko should just take a break and have fun at the festival with everyone. She should have a good time, reminisce on our former peaceful days, and then she went home. Everything would be over. Yeah, that would be the best outcome. With that decided, I needed to dig a hole somewhere in the woods to hide the body, so it wouldn't stand out, so it wouldn't be found. Someplace nobody would see me while I was completely exposed as I buried the corpse. I wanted it to be close to the scene of the crime, but it naturally grew farther away. Deep in the bosom of the Black Forest, the voices of the Higurashi were the only sounds here, informing me that people shouldn't discreetly set a foot in this place. Digging a hole, huh? Digging a hole with so many tree roots crawling around the ground would be far more difficult than I envisioned. I snuck a gardening spade out here in my bag, but that wouldn't be enough. Still, as I looked into various approaches, then I managed to find a place I could dig into. Tomorrow, I'd bring a real shovel from the storeroom at home. I'd manage with that. I wonder how big a hole would have to be fit a human all the way into it. Then, I'd probably have to dig pretty deep down. But if I was slipshod in these efforts, I'd let a beginning occur. I absolutely couldn't allow that. Using any amount of time you need to, I mustn't spare any effort to utterly erase him. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was a little past 6. This was probably all I was going to get done here for today. I probably wanted to dig a hole in advance tonight, even if it got dark out, but Mom would be upset if I stayed out that late. It wouldn't be good to come off as suspicious to my parents. I needed to go back home and give Mio a call soon. I needed to get her to promise Satoko to take her by tonight. After that, today would be done. Done. Would it be though? Was this really everything I could do to prepare right now? I decided where to kill him. I decided how to kill him. I decided, of course, how to dispose of the body. I didn't decide on a time, but I would play by ear. I didn't have a way to decide that. Was that really all? Was this really alright? Have I overlooked anything? Would this really go how I planned? After all this, worries started welling up one after another. It was only natural I'd be anxious. This would be the first and last big job of my lifetime. I could not allow failure, and I'd had no experience, as this was my first time. I didn't have the know-how, the knack, so it was only natural I'd be anxious. The dark clouds of unease told me doing nothing would be the easiest way, a truly pathetic suggestion this late in the game. Have you forgotten how miserable Satoko looked? From the outside, it may look like I was resolute, but deep in my heart, my knees were shaking loudly. I'd never won a single fight to my satisfaction. Could I really kill someone? I may have been planning an ambush, but my enemy was large and far older than me. He had a scary face. He looked like he was well accustomed to fighting. Could I have all these pieces before and after the murder were perfectly planned, but the actual murder, the most important part, was unsettled me the most. All my preparations and my perfectly concealed machinations, if I didn't successfully murder him, they amounted to nothing. After coming this far, you're pathetic, Keiji Maebara. If you start to have these kinds of second thoughts, your ulterior motive will be obvious. Let's go home. Go home and calm your mind. Tomorrow will be a juncture in your life, the likes of which graduation, employment, marriage, and childbirth couldn't hold a candle to. A day of murder, to kill someone, for someone else's sake. With that day behind us, we will probably take back again those mild spring-like days we'd never thought would stop, those peaceful, fun times. I pedaled my bicycle hard to get back home. I felt somehow unsteady, like my body and soul were in alignment. A subtle shift between where the tips of my hand and feet really were and where I felt them to be. My vision was a little distant and narrow, as if the great barrier I risked my future life on had nothing to do with me. An unreal sensation. How could I put it? Everything was so far away. Fine. feel your unease permeate you, Keiji Maibara. If that will turn your timidity into medicalessness, I'm sorry, and allow you to act with greater caution, then it's actually an important emotion to feel. This feeling I had never went away that night. It was the first time I'd be calling Mion's house. I searched for a phone book the school gave. I searched in the phone book the school gave me, then dialed a short phone number, the kind unique to remote places. It was around dinner time. She would probably be home. But just as I started to think nobody would respond, someone finally picked up the receiver. Hello? This is Sonosaki. Oh, I'm sorry for calling so late at night. Is this Mion? Huh? May I ask who's calling? It's me, Keiji. Oh, Kei-chan. It's pretty late. What's up? Oh, crack. She seemed to be in a weirdly good mood, and she drew her syllables out. Right, it's the night before tomorrow's festival, so she's probably with her family having some drinks. Sorry for the late call. Do you have time right now? Sure, what is it? It's about Satoko. I heard her draw in a small breath on the other end. Satoko, she's in a pretty bad spot. I hope she's okay. The scent of sake had completely disappeared from her voice. She can't be okay. You saw too, didn't you? What she was like? She was completely worn out from all the abuse. We failed her all this time, and now she's become like that. We didn't fail her. Everyone tried their hardest to help her. But we didn't come up with anything, and we couldn't save her. In the end, we couldn't do anything about it. And now she's become like that. I guess you're right. All I did was watch after all. So, well, at least... Couldn't we at least let her have fun for one night? Huh? Let her have fun? She's been so battered lately, you understand. That's why I want you to take her to the Watanagashi festival tomorrow. And I don't mind, but why? Why? I want to give her a breather at least for the festival night, you know? Even if it's just one night, if she can get away from her evil uncle. And I think she'll be happy, even if it's only a little while. Yes, but why? Why what? I was having a little difficulty understanding what Mion was asking me. Why? Well, I mean, why don't you bring her, Kei-chan? Why do you need me to ask me to do it? Mion was persistent about odd things. No, maybe it better to say that she was sharp. I actually have something to do tomorrow. I can't make it to the festival, so I wanted you to take Satoko there for me. Something to do? It's nothing major. I'll probably finish quickly, but I might not be able to meet up with you all tomorrow. Hey, Mion? Could I leave Satoko to you just for tomorrow night? Mion took a long time to give her a reply. I got the feeling that Mion had been acting weird for a little while now, like she was flustered by emotions or something. No. Huh? Was that a sob? Mion! Are you crying? I said no, I don't want to. I don't want you to push this onto someone like me. I'm not trying to push anything onto you. It's just for tomorrow night. That was a lie. What? Mion, what was she talking about? Saying it's just for the night of Watanagashi, and then it was forever. Liar. But I guess we're even, huh? I couldn't keep the promise I made with you. I left her alone all this time. I had no idea what to say to that. Mion was clearly now talking to someone other than me. I didn't know who. All I could do was listen to her in a daze. And now you called... You never came back after that. Oh wait, I think I know one. You never came back after that. And now you called me again to push her onto me? You're so unfair. Hey, you're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? Mion, what are you talking about? When I said her name, whatever spell was on Mion was released. I'm sorry. It's nothing. It's just I got a phone call like that you're making now a long time ago. Was it from Satoshi? Mion didn't answer. All I could hear were sobs coming through the receiver. Sorry. I think I'm a little tipsy. I got weirdly emotional. Sorry, I probably scared you. I had no idea how it happened, but I was pretty sure that last year on the very day, Satoshi had called Mion and told her to bring Satsuko to the festival, and when she asked why he needed her to do it, he replied the same way I just did. Satoshi didn't go to the festival, did he? Yeah. He said he had something to do and he couldn't make it. He told me to take Satsuko there in his place. At the time, Satoshi said it too, didn't he? Then he'd leave Satsuko to you. Yeah, he did. Just for tomorrow night. The way he said it was just like how he did. I just got a little upset, caught up in a memory and all. I didn't expect this. Satoshi had given her the exact same phone call 1 year ago today. Mion kept going after that he was lying, that he told her it will only be for the night of the festival. I get it. A few days later, Satoshi, he disappeared. Disappeared might have been a rather vague way to put it. Whether he ran away or not, Satoshi left, abandoning Satsuko. Yes, he didn't transfer or run away from home. He disappeared. And then an idea far more indistinct and even fog crossed my mind. Satoshi made exactly the same phone call as me last year. Why would Satoshi make the exact same phone call if, in the truest sense, he really made the exact same phone call as I am right now? Then the incident when her aunt was beaten to death, that? Could it? Was Satoshi? Huh? What was that? Last year, Satsuko had been constantly abused? What the? By her uncle's wife, their aunt. Her aunt abused her the most. On that night, in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse, she was taken from this world. When I thought about that, everything made perfect sense, didn't it? Last year, Satsuko's aunt was beaten to death, wasn't she? Would it be impossible for Satoshi to have... No, that would mean... But then, Satoshi, he was a coward who abandoned Satsuko and ran away, wasn't he? How could Satoshi resolve himself to kill a person to save Satsuko? It was unthinkable. I actually considered that as well, though it'd be mean to Satoshi. A few days later, he disappeared. On the night on Satsuko's birthday, when I first heard it, I flew into rage. What a cruel day to have run away on, but now that I thought about it like this, the story changed completely. Satoshi had probably been even less calm than I was now. He was her big brother, related by blood, watching his little sister be abused day in and day out. Maybe that's why he couldn't keep calm. And that was why the corpse of her aunt, beaten to death, was so easily discovered. Satoshi lost himself in anger and hadn't hidden the corpse. He permitted a beginning to occur. If the police conducted a full-blown investigation, it was easy to imagine they wouldn't take long to pin Satoshi as the culprit. Satoshi, he wished for a return to peaceful days with Satoko, and even though he achieved it for a long time, he had been steadily driven into a corner. And then, he wanted to at least hold out until Satoko's birthday, but finally, they nailed him. At the time, Satoko had been carrying the savings he had amassed to buy Satoko a giant stuffed animal for a birthday present. He would buy the stuffed animal as her gift, and then get caught. Or could he use the money and disappear? That was the choice he had been forced to make, and he decided to make Satoko the sister of a murderer. If that was the case, then it must have been an unspeakably bitter decision. All that money he'd saved, wanting to see Satoko happy, he used it to make her sad. And he used the savings and disappeared to Tokyo, if the rumors were true. Was that how Satoshi disappeared? I don't know. That Oishi guy seems to think that way, though. Oishi. Had he been slowly driven into a corner by that repulsive man's pig-headed pursuit? The circumstantial evidence is all there, but I think your deduction is wrong. They caught some other crazy drug addict somewhere in the prefecture, and he apparently turned himself in for the crime. That was right. The deviant had confessed, and the incident was solved. They said he was just a crazy person, and he had no ties to Hinamizawa. And no relationship with Satoshi, of course. I mean, I could have had a hard time believing the guy would lie in Satoshi's place. You couldn't just arbitrarily decide like that. You never know where or how humans were tied together. If the guy took the blame, then it was the perfect crime. Of course, if it really was a perfect crime, then there would have been no reason for Satoshi to vanish. Plus, I don't think Satoshi had the kind of money to run away. That day, he withdrew all his savings. No matter who I tell this to, nobody believes me, but that stuffed animal he was buying for Satoko, it was gone from the display, sold. It must have been Satoshi. Wait a minute. If he didn't use the money to flee and bought the stuffed animal instead, he would have gone back to Satoko, wouldn't he? It seemed unbelievable and then disappeared without having given it to her. Yeah, so now I don't know what happened. It would be one thing if he had the money, but if he used all his savings, he'd be totally broke. You can't live a life on the run without money in this world. I didn't get it. After all that, I was understanding Satoshi less and less. The two of us fell silent. I couldn't remember how we got on this topic. Sorry, I think we got off topic. Satoko, right? Don't worry, I actually already invited her. Huh? You serious? Then, when everyone went to the shrine to prepare for the festival, we started talking about getting Satoko to the festival itself. So then I used the phone at the assembly hall to invite her. Her uncle was acting distant. Sorry about that. And didn't seem to care at all. But in any case, we got the okay from him. We decided to all meet up and go together tomorrow. You okay with that, Satoshi? Stupid, I'm not Satoshi. I was a little relieved. I hadn't needed to make the phone call. Satoko had already been invited to the festival. And not in a way that smelled of blood. A way to leave her uncle alone, to create time for me to kill him. They purely wanted Satoko to enjoy herself, so they invited her. In the end, it was the same. I was happy for that slight difference. Sorry, I guess I didn't need to call then. First tomorrow, now today. Sorry for saying such weird things. Just forget about it. No, I'm the one who should apologize. Losing it like that isn't like me. I'm really sorry. We apologized to each other for a bit. Alright, I'll be going now. Good night. What do you have to do? As if interrupting our parting words, Mion struck straight where it hurt. Or is it like with Satoshi, where you can't say? Stupid. I keep telling you, I'm not Satoshi. Yeah, I know that. I deflected her with a response that really wasn't an answer. Mion didn't hound me anymore after that. Alright, this time for real, good night. I don't know why you're giving me the same phone call that Satoshi-kun did, but yeah, never mind, I'm sorry, good night. I'm hanging up. Click. Satoshi Hojo, just who are you? I scorned you as a coward who ran away, abandoning his sister. I always thought you didn't have the right to call yourself her Nini. But now I didn't know what to think. Oyoshiro-sama's curse was on the fourth year, their aunt's death, and Satoshi's disappearance. And now me trying to carry out Oyoshiro-sama's curse on the fifth. Oddly enough, what I was going to do overlapped perfectly with Satoshi the day before the curse. No, that wasn't all. If we start back from Satoko being abused, then I'd been overlapping with Satoshi for days already. When I talked to Mion before, she asked me if I was Satoshi. If that was the first impression a third party like Mion got, then it was probably true. Then as Satoshi had accomplished, I would succeed in the murder. But that was the extent to which he overlapped. I was far calmer than Satoshi, and more calculating. I could actually grow calmer the more enthusiastic I become. That's why I wouldn't follow in Satoshi's footsteps. I would snip him cleanly out of this world and get our peaceful life back. And maybe Satoshi has been with me ever since I chose to use Satoshi's bat as my weapon. No, maybe even longer than that. When I decided to be her Nini, maybe Satoshi had been residing within me then too. Satoshi, were you really a coward? Or are you a true Nini even now? The kind of worthy of Satoko's love. I'd never met him, never spoken to him, to even know his face, and yet I felt so connected to him. I'd never felt that way before. Well, that's a bit peculiar. Possessed. Sounds about right. Few new tips. Oh, this is just one. That's interesting. July 1982. Okinomiya Police Station, 1st Investigative Division. Chief Takasugi. Prefecture Police Headquarters for the Eradication of Drug-Related Crime, Shishibone Branch Head. Regarding incident designated as undercover investigation, this message is to inform you that a section of testimony record of an incident under this police headquarters jurisdiction has been found out that is thought to be related to the undercover investigation of the incident in question, Okinomiya Police Station X, Hinamizawa Village, housewife slaughter incident. During investigation of suspect who was arrested for possession of illegal drugs, there was a testimony related to the crime in question, and as part of it, we learned that the criminal had information that we could have known. Therefore, this record of testimony, duplicate attached, will be provided to you. If this testimonial is to be believed, then there is an extremely high chance that suspect was the culprit behind the incident in question. In the investigation, the head investigator on the case received this report, inquired as to the incident with the Okinomiya Police Station, but the responsible party at Okinomiya Station, who responded to the designated undercover investigation announced by the Prefectural Police General Director, July 1st, 1982, Osamu Fusakane, B112, misunderstood and did not explain the incident existence to the head investigator on the case properly. Because of this, the case's head investigator was not aware of the incident of the testimony, as it was related to the case in question, and as a result, negligent when combing the scene. We apologize for having left it in the dark until now. Oh god, that noise again. In addition, there was a postscript stating that suspect died while in confinement yesterday on XXX. Yeah, looks like I'm almost done with them. Yeah, let me save right here. Now on to chapter 10. Yeah, we got 3 more to go. Keep going, Galeno. Sunday. The fireworks I heard before noon were probably to announce the opening of the festival. And the weather certainly wasn't festival weather. Man, they keep introducing all these new songs. It was cloudy. The television forecast was calling for possible downpours starting this evening and lasting until around midnight, but as long as it wasn't raining at the moment, the festival would go on. the festival had to open or it wouldn't begin. The Furude Shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up, all in the auspicious color of red and white. The sound of electric motors at the stalls, the voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them smiling. Today was the festival of Watanagashi. Was everyone already partaking in festivities? What about Satoko? Had she forgotten the days of suffering just for a few moments? While smiling that brilliant smile she hadn't been in so long. This would probably be the longest day of my life. It would be the day I would remember vividly for as long as I lived. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounge about during the early afternoon. We may have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't help being surprised by the oh God, I can't even say it. Deviation from how I usually spent my time. Glancing at my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes just a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in those knots. When I decided to murder Satoko's uncle, I was in such a state of excitement I almost went crazy. Yeah, you kinda are. And when I was planning out the act of a murder, which went directly against all the mores fostered in me thus far, I was in a state of calm. I almost thought I lost my emotions. And then, yesterday, when I learned Satoko had made exactly the same phone calls, when I learned Satoshi had made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feeling I had then. And now, entering today, right now, I lacked all the emotion I possessed until now. To make a simple analogy, it was kind of feeling you might get right after waking up, when you're still half asleep, and you don't feel anything very clearly. I had no anger towards that man for the violence he committed against Satoko, nor did I feel sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent towards my friends who had just waited and watched, never reaching out to her with any help, and no nervousness or fear towards the day that finally come. Yes, right now, you could say, in the best possible condition for carrying out a murder. When it came down to it, I would probably need to let my violent emotions take control. But right up until that moment, I would be like an insect. I would slowly, surely, and silently move towards my one objective, and then had my prey. I'd attack like a bullet. There was no emotion in that, just a creepy mindset insects possess. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I would kill Satoko's uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little at thinking that way, thinking like an insect. Tug, I tightened my laces one more time and walked out the door. I brought the shovel out of the front storeroom. I would need I would need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel was a convenient one made for camping. If I twisted it like so and split it into 3, I could easily hide it into my bag. I twisted the shovel and dismantled it. And even though I had done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason. Like I was suddenly clumsy now. I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self, deep within me, was hesitant. I knew that the act of dismantling the shovel was the first step I'd take to becoming a murderer. God, oh! The last twist was conspicuously difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. The area around Satoko's house was outside my circle of activity, but even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. I definitely wanted to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. With that in mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. I didn't mind going the long way around. With how long this day would be, I could never be too careful after all. Still, I was fortunate enough to run across anybody on my way out to the planned site of the crime. I wasn't superstitious at this point, but it was a good omen. The place I would dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place before, but there were no signs to guide me. But I arrived there smoothly, and as expected, I took another look around. Not even a hint of human presence. The air was a little damp, but it was uncomfortable. In the cool shade of the trees, I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag and began skillfully putting it together. Then I stuck the tip into the shovel into a soft-looking patch of the ground and pushed on it with my foot. The shovel would split into the earth, and if I put some strength into that foot, the act of doing so seems awfully like the point of no return, and it made me hesitate. It was just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Keiji Maibara. Let's do a countdown. Get it done on the count of 3, okay? Alright? 1, 2. I couldn't do it on the countdown, despite it just being sticking the shovel into the ground, and I had to count down 5 or 6 times. I'm just digging a hole. This is pathetic. As I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unpleasant, and split came the sharp noise. Ooh. Ooh. It was only soft at the beginning. Roots and stones quickly got in my way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a hole big enough for a person. No decent person would ever come here anyway. Maybe it would be enough to cover him up with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on it with my teeth and dug even harder. I dug enough now, and I could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I could go down into the hole and grow disappointed how shallow it was, and return to digging. The thin layer of sweat on my brow eventually formed into drops and fell on the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin, and it felt so disgusting. The only thing I couldn't stand the most were the mosquitoes. Maybe they were attracted to the scent of my sweat, and the white and black striped mosquitoes would cling on to me whenever I let my guard down. It was hot. It was disgusting. I was sticky. I was itchy. All those uncomfortable feelings surged through me in waves. So what? Are you going to tell me to pack up and go home? Is that it? I hadn't yelled at anyone, but it was me talking to myself. Me telling myself something. Why was I feeling this way and digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging this hole at all? Wait, in the first place, who ordered me to dig? When I thought it over, maybe ever since grade school, or even before that, my whole life had only been me doing what other people told me to. I didn't mean it, how it was somehow constrained, even living a life just based on the command of others. I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road in life. Metaphorically speaking, yes, it was like a road. I'd never been particularly physically fit. I didn't hit puberty very early, and if all my classmates and I got in line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My scores in jump rope competition and marathons were the very picture of average, and it wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock-paper-scissors contest to see which would get me. During those kindergarten and grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew on me and how fit they were. Looking back on it, it really felt uncomfortable for me. The only thing that had turned all that around was a few words from my mother. Keiji, would you like to go to a cram school? You'll better grasp what you're learning in school, and it will be more fun. The very test I took at a cram school was kind of like a game, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't like the test with the exact same problem of dozens of times in a row. Every question had a picture to it. Even almost one of those puzzle books that came with manga magazines. If my studies at school had been like this, it would have been way more fun. Several days later, I went into cram school again with my mother and the enrollment paperwork. Mom said the person at the cram school had a really long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said. But I clearly remember one point. Mom had a loud groan, surprised at something. By 61, do you mean his average score was 61 points? No, not at all, Mrs. Maebara. The mean deviation of our cram schools all across the country is 61. He's showing rare numbers, even if it was just a simplified intelligence examination. First, I would like to say Keiji Maebara-kun is extremely bright. Keiji? But he doesn't have very good grades at school. He has average marks on his report cards, B's, C's, D's. Is there some kind of mistake? We gave him a crippling test as well. And we learned some very interesting things as a result. Maebara-kun is extremely weak when faced with questions that don't have meaning. He just has no interest in simple, dull questions that don't have to do with everyday life. So even if he doesn't know what 2 plus 3 is, if I told him he had 2 apples and we got 3 more, he would understand that sort of question? That's right. For example, instead of telling him to draw a flattened, foldable cube, and if we asked him what a die would look like when cut open, we did that, he can answer beautifully. Then the person from the cram school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper with questions about the construction. Construction questions were unusual, so they were really cool, weren't they? Is this question? It asked to draw an unfolded regular icosahedron. Oh my god. A shape with 20 faces. When we rephrase it and ask him how can we cut out a piece of cupboard to create a 20-sided die, Keiji-kun drew the answer as though it were easy. This is not something an average child can do. Keiji? Have you ever made a die with 20 sides from a magazine extra or anything? Dice only went from 1 to 6. I'd never seen considered before this test that there were dice with more than 6 sides. It was no fun to imagine what kind of shape a die that went up 20 would have. If I had a die like that, I could win a dice game against anyone. By the way, Cal, are you still here? So I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered cram school. There were only 4 students in the class that they put me in, which was called Select. It was the highest class, and some of my classmates were in lower classes. And when I remember how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and 50-meter sprint, I felt like happiness welled up within me for the first time. Even if it wasn't as good at them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised. My teachers at school suddenly started pampering me, and it felt good. My parents were satisfied too, and I enjoyed seeing them satisfied. The more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. That did happen, didn't it? I grinned dryly in self-deprecation. Because, well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting very long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I eventually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind what I was learning in cram school, and I eventually stopped respecting the teachers, given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And well, I was a disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew. And the ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in that state of ecstasy forever. I would do as I was told, then I'd go above and beyond their expectation, and then they praised me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated itself like wheels on a bike. I thought moving forward like that was how life works like a bicycle. When I moved to Hinamizawa, I realized just how inadequate it was. Some things happened, and we started saying how moving and getting a change in atmosphere would be nice. And then my father, he had a place that he liked. That he'd gone to a few times to draw to nature. He started saying that he wanted to bring his atelier there. With me and Blake amazement, they decided to move it to Hinamizawa, and after that, I met them, didn't I? The first day after transferring here, I went to the classroom with the teacher. I thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me in there, so I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the room. Clatter. The thrilling, powerful way I opened the door was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. And then, within seconds, was that a typo? That determination took a hard counter to the face. A blackboard eraser fell on me. Plus, there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Oh, come on, Satoko was already beating me right there from the first day I transferred? That frightened me. I was bewildered. The class was surprised too. I wasn't just as surprised that students in the class were all in different grades and were different genders. It was because the room felt completely different from the schools I knew. Just as I spent more time with them, my surprise continued to grow. The fresh sense of surprise had never left my life, even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. I never had a single boring day coming here. The days were lively, spent with other club members. We played Old Maid with cards, with scratches on the back to cheat. We all let our passions go wild during our games. We went all out as regular participants in tournaments at the toy store in town and many, many more things. Recently, during those times, there was the bento competition. It was that's when I saw an unexpected side to Satoko. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her 2 nights. It was such a sweet, gentle time spent, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized that Satoko was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was. Part of her heart always waiting for her Nini to come home, and I vowed to become her Nini. Satoko may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. But though it might have seemed like she was taking the lead, it was actually her way of depending upon another person. Even if Satoshi and Satoko's lives as siblings were still confined by their uncle and his wife, there were still warm, sunny days. When did those sunny days all go wrong? What mistake was made? Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, and I told myself that so many times, but I did anyway. Keiji, isn't that why you chose your own path? To take back that life? Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You won't desire anyone's praise for this. You thought it all through yourself. You'll carve it out yourself. And you'll do it now. This wasn't a path I could see very far down. Not like the road parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark and utterly distressing. One for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But that disheartening path would keep on going forever. It was an unlimited path, and there was nowhere I couldn't travel. The kind of path that only available to those who imagine where they wanted to go. Don't be ashamed at breaking from the brightly lit, paved road. In fact, feel proud that you found your very own path to walk, and I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I would go back to that bright road, and then I'd spend those averages sunny days at my leisure. And hi, Edu, how are you doing tonight? Now, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name. Yeah, you know. Crush. When I realized the hole had grown so deep, I couldn't believe it. Did I dig all this myself? Yeah, or you were having your little memory lane. I think digging this much is enough, right? I put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I would drag the body there, throw it into the hole, and cover up with dirt. Even if it took me time to camouflage it by plants on the top, it would all go much more easily than digging this whole hat. I glanced at my watch. It was almost evening, and I hadn't realized it. I may not have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have had quite a lot of time. I took a seat on the slanted rock nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got a little darker, I'd go get the metal bed I hid in the schoolyard. Then I'd make the call to lure him out. And then I'd do it. Do it! The number of things I needed to do to reach that moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I felt that, a contradiction. At every step in the process, I had a few chances to hesitate, to turn back, to let myself lose my nerve, having to endure those million temptations and wait for when the time was right was an indescribably slow and painful torture. I had thought myself acting all weak because of that, but I stopped midway through. This was okay. It was fine. I could detest the abnormal acts of homicide as much as I wanted, and it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cutthroat killer after today. I would pass through the strange day and go back to the world I was in before. If I fell to the level of a psychopath who thought of nothing of killing, I wouldn't be able to go back to my old life. So, this was fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed at hesitating to kill, because I was human. It was so funny to me that I'd be the bearer of Oyashiro-sama's curse. At the same time, I was aware I was human. I exhaled and lightly stood. I concealed my presence, and had sharpened my senses in all directions to search anyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time, I would walk my own path. A path no one had forced me to walk. Let's do this. Keiji Maibara? The cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot, and their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I would be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every ounce of strength they had. The sky was far from above. In not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near, and the sky would be tinted with dusk. By that time, the Higurashis would let me hear their chorus in the place of the cicadas. When that happened, would everything be over with? Would everything have ended? I said something along those lines when I left Satoko's fate up to a public agency, but this time was different. I would do it. I would carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end. Yes. When the Higurashis cried. Roll credits. Ding! Oh, looks like the anime took a piece of that line. Hang on a sec. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be surprised. It had gotten darker, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy construction machine. I had hidden the metal bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone had found the bat and hidden it somewhere else as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there then, the sensation of chilled metal, it was still there where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He waited there patiently for me. Sorry for the wait, Satoshi. It has been a long time coming. You prepare for this? Through a metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. Oh my god. That I should be asking, you know. I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself. Right on, Satoshi. Let's show him a bad time. Satoshi's bat got lighter and lighter and fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally like it was an extension of my own right arm. Of course, it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Next, I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Satoko's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Couldn't I use the school phone? But as I thought, the room was locked up and I couldn't get in. I'm so naive. You probably should have at least figured this part out. I couldn't call him, and just for that, was today all over? I'm sorry, Satoshi. And just as I cursed my own naivete, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man, the one from the Forest Service Field office. Why? Wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, the forest officer went around back and felt around his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. The best possible coincidence, and it had to be Satoshi who'd saved me. The metal bat, through just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. I felt the man head into the forest office storehouse, which was far in the back of the students weren't allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the floor slowly as if it lured me in. I took a breath and went in. I tiptoed silently and stealthily and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with a phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then back door clattered shut and locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rolled out the school gate. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure the silence was the real deal, and then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Satoko's phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Satoko had been the one from their house where he lived with her uncle. I touched the dials with my fingers, then thought for a moment, and about to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over in my head last night, now that I have my finger on the dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight, and to not sound so suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. The call sound. Would Satoko's uncle pick up? Now, of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Satoko if he didn't, whirled around in a vortex. Hello? It was the voice of a grumpy old man, like he had just woken up. He picked up.
Hello?
Say your name so I know you're Hojo. It would be terrible if I got it wrong. I made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go. This is the Shishibone Okinomiya police station. Am I speaking to the Hojo residents? I was changing my voice, but did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police?
Oh, yes. This is Hojo.
I wonder if that's even a good voice for this guy. We currently have your daughter, Satoko Hojo, here with us.
What? Satoko? What did that brat do?
He fell for it. I could tell by now how tense he was. He didn't doubt my words. I can explain the particulars once you arrive here. Would you mind coming to the station right away?
Right now? I already took a bath myself. So I don't really want to go out like this, though. What?
What? You don't have want to come because you already took a bath? Yes, right away.
Right away? Jeez, man.
What did Satoko do? I'll explain once you're here. Oh my god, I can already envision the English sub of the anime happening right now. I will be waiting. Thank you for his assistance.
Eh? 1 second. I don't know where the police station is. Where am I going?
You idiot! The Okinomiya police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? A greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke.
Oh, next to the fire station. Right. That's pretty far.
Thank goodness he remembered on his own for me. I didn't care where the police station was. So as long as he left his house to get there, then we will be waiting here.
Wait. Who am I asking for once I get here? What is your name?
On top of that, he wanted to know my name. Just leave your house already. Maibashi. Excuse me. That was close. I almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. I managed to change the last syllable of it, but I put the receiver down like I was running away. My fingers were trembling, and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had just been put into motion. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough for me to open from the inside, but I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge looking for the key. I needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. Quick slideshow. And hi, Lorks, how are you doing tonight? I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got here, everything would be over. He learned there was no one at the station named Maibashi. Maibashi? I'm sorry, I have to laugh there for a sec. And things would get pretty messed up. As I returned full speed, I passed the family wearing yukatas. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Inamizawa knew my face, though. I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But I generally come around here, so living in the area might have not known much about me. That didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible to control my breathing and to ambush the man. I hid my bike in the thicket and picked up Satoshi's bag, which I just left hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't got here. Or maybe he just went right out after the phone call and passed by here already. I figured which it was, and was set upon by the indescribable impatience. Calm down, Keiji Maibara. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact that he died. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? I figured it. Sorry about that. Oh my god. I figured it would be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed, or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. I couldn't tell what motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he just went a little farther, he crossed into that thicket and appeared in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him. Then when I had, I'd put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. A few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Satoko's uncle's bike, without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Satoko's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at its characteristic again. Its color, shape, and most of all, the man's clothes and face. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. Satoko, now your Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer. The bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi? Yeah. Whoosh! I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. Whoa! He gave a dumb shot as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally, it fell, scattering the clouds of sand, and after spinning, it stopped. Her uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. The inverted colors. My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird segregation crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Now, was I the once of a lifetime opportunity? What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling down. The tensions in my muscles all went away, like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and I let my hands dangle at my sides. It was quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now, Keiji Maibara? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape, scrape. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, then toward Satoko's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes, at this moment, the guy had lost permission to live. I had just rescinded it. So he mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Satoko's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. That hurt! That's all it took for it to hurt? Satoko's heart hurt much more, and now you're gonna feel that, and with your life, I'll make it up for her pain. I erased all necessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute, execute, execute. Wham! Utterly... Oh, here comes that music again. Utterly calmly, I deliver my first strike to the back of his head. I want to get the most effective spot to during the first moment I attack him while he was at his most defenseless. Ooga! And if he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was the most defensive reaction a human made, like machines. He used both hands to cover his head so he couldn't pick himself up. The heat he was in on the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he covered his head, I'd hit him on the side. If he covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. By delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done clearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself up on the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It was just a judgment he made after seeing my face and decided whether to fight me. Right now, he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that he presented himself. A counterattack from the more physically capable uncle, but I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that lucky. And the odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How unpleasant that he would run in the direction where nobody else was. He was fleeing into a strange geography, like a rat that indistinctively run into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded, and total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead 3 branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My sense, mind, and body were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I've ever had killing someone. It felt natural continuing to do this for the first time, and that meant I had this much talent for killing, or perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. I hadn't struggled or grown tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at the back of his shoulder and head, even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for his forgiveness. It didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be even eaten, like an herbivore with all its might trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite all the bad footing in the forest, and he impressively never tripped over anything, there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. If he bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever, he was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Satoko. Scarred after scar to her body, and mind deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. Oh. Ugh. Whoa! My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder. Purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. The uncle gave puny little shrieks, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine, run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the movement at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs will about to feel like you burst, your head will hurt from the lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on the terror of approaching the death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran, but he was chased, his skull bashed with the metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming verge on crying, and pleas for forgiveness to someone, I didn't know who. Each and every second of atonement that I granted for him. Now run. Then fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you would never have shown up. If you had never shown up, our lives would be still fun and enjoyable. We would have never gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you only saw at festivals, and trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, or target practice. Mion will surely make it into a competition, and we, as a club, would have a grand time. and everyone would have been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance, and everyone would say how fun it was, and it would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, warm time spent with friends, and that would have happened, but it didn't. And now it was all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that there would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world, but I would correct that mistake by now. I would erase you and make it so this week never happened. Tonight was the Watanagashi festival, the holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It looked like the Higurashis stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashis cried, everything would end. And the Higurashis silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is at an end. The Higurashis have stopped crying. Thus, it is the end. The end, the end, the end. End! You don't have to run away anymore. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Whoa! Okay then. Lightning and thunder strike like an explosion. It was so loud that it shook the ground, and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It felt like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening, he left as his knees gave out to him. I remained alert for a few moments, and then thud, I planted both knees in the ground, and then fell towards burying my head in the ground. I had only been holding back my ragged breathing, but now it all came to like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light, and unable to maintain my balance. I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer, and after a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood, and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it, and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, it would have been then I would have just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again. And then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Then once again I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different, and then it started to spray like a filthy dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Satoko's uncle, nor pity towards Satoko herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It had begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement faded within me as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's bat like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem very different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. But it was itself would be evidence. One piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions had been daydreams and I'd ended Satoko's uncle for all eternity. Alright, Keiji, calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body, but where was I? I'd simply followed the man as he ran into the darkness. I hadn't taken a guess as to how far we ran. It was already pitch black, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. The vision was so good, I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now that how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the street light. I looked up and down the roads, desperately trying to figure out where I was. Oh no. This was the one road connecting to Hinamizawa and to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Satoko's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge at the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. That was a long way. Between there and the ambush location where I dug the hole, there was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of the path. That would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate. And they wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike comes first. And I wanted to get the shovel back from where I'd left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I would have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour, and was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I'd left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he never existed, and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head towards, and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while, I let my desire have its ways. After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside, Considering how it looked pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually seemed like it had been lying for a very long time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. I didn't know it would be so heavy. I was a little surprised. But once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll it along. Still, pushing this thing all the way to the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times how far away the swamp was. This motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it would be basically the same as a bicycle. Wouldn't get me to the swamp quickly. A plan suggested by my exhaustion. The anxiety at getting on the motorcycle for the first time withdrew. I turned the key, and then you just kicked this pedal, right? Yeah, vroom! It's on, and then I grabbed the handlebars, first on the right, then the left. Wah! Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. I lost it for a second, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time, slowly, gently. That time, it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even quickly if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. Mion told me once you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was clearly right. This was pretty easy. I needed to throw the bat into the swamp too. But I didn't know how I would pack the bat into the motorcycle. Without much choice, I stuffed it into the back of my shirt, like a ninja carrying a katana. If I put the tip down of the seat of my pants and hunched over, it wouldn't fall out. I got back on the bike and this time got going without any difficulty. I carefully pressed the button labeled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. I probably shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't give any way of seeing at this point, and zero confidence I could ride through the darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They were all soaked through the rain and hurrying on their way home, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday, I might have been wary of even these passerbys, but right now it didn't seem much cause for concern. In fact, it would probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open instead of sneaking around. More and more, I started to think of that idea as naive, but brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed the steep hill on a bike. The hill would have put me out of breath, but it just had to accelerate a bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onigafuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Still, it wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad if you found out you were playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out sometimes to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talked before about how they go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid, then just tie it to a fishing line and throw it, and all the crayfish would come running. Once they got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and the traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp waited for me. If I slammed the accelerator from a cliff-like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of Watanagashi, Satoko's corpse was found in the thicket of the road leading to town, and Keiji Maibara went missing. People would whisper that I had been demoned away. The 5th year's curse would be a half-baked one. I got off the bike and twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go just when it seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a fainter splash than I imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by a downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy after all. It would be quickly by the engulfed mud at the bottom of the swamp. And it would be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached the underworld itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down the road to the land of the demons, but I did have a tinge of regret when I did it with Satoshi's bat. The muddy water washed off the gore sticking to it, and it sunk easily. I have sort of shared today's event with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker from before, so it could continue to keep watch over Satoko. Satoshi, I probably misunderstood you. Satoshi never listened quietly without nodding. I am absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Satoko. What if maybe that might be true? I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know that was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that peace and lost it within days. So, I swear to you that I would live life to the fullest from now on. Live it enough for both of us. I will live on as though this day never happened. But I will never forget the short time we had together, for as long as I lived. I didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing, and then my hand moved on its own accord, and the bat I hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. It traveled a parabolic path, spinning it all the while, and the swamp absorbed without a sound. There weren't any ripples when it hit the surface. That surface was temptatious because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment, I regretted having thrown it, but I realized That might have been what Satoshi had wanted. You're right. I still can't let myself give into emotions yet. I would return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body and bury it. It seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted and had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me with the only advice that I needed to finish this up soon, then fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path that I ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the bush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, I let my guard down. My vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Keiji Maebara. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole I'd hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I had it hidden deep in the forest, not wanting it to be seen, and now everything was black in the night. I couldn't see anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized just how big this annoyance really was. Wait, you can't be serious. The sweat the rain washed away before it came back up to my skin. Deep in the forest, where the streetlights could never reach, the fact that it would be pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I had to be able to kill him right away like I'd planned, if I didn't know, if I still could have buried him without a problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd actually lose even my sense of direction, and might actually get lost in there. That might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over the tree root and sprain a muscle. Oh, right, my house's storage room. There would have been another shovel here, the same fold-up kind. Can I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up the finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Maebara written on the shovel, but it seemed like an unusual item from an import variety store, made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything. Maybe I should give up and go back to the storage room. And then there was an electric lantern in there. If I used that for light, I could look for it. It was so extremely dark, I could light the way with just the lantern. The light of the lantern this dark night, I couldn't discard the possibility of drawing eyes, and I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, if I left the body there for a pretty long time already, my sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared his ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing was to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I go back to the storage room at home. Then I get the lantern. And then it's gotten this dark. Now that it's gotten this dark, I might need to dig a hole for the body too. Then I get another shovel. Then I deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel, and bring it back. I had to at least, but I was so tired, but complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth. and endured lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I experienced, none had ever been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. The lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw it was almost 7. I thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. I was surprised at how messed up my biological clock has gotten just from this one night. There was a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The worlds between here and what was beyond those curtains were so different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. I'd be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I had with all my friends. And then, even though they made a hot meal for me, I would have eaten way too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, and gone back to my room. No doubt I crawled into my futon and easily let myself fall asleep. But right now, I was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak street lights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family, and there was neither warm food nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body was exposed to the cold rain. I knew that I simply had to spur myself onto accomplish what I must. I realized how timid, how cowardly I was becoming. For what reason did I need to kill someone? Even if I felt this terrible, I'd lost sight of my purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Satoko, and executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. He would have never ever hurt Satoko again. We all thought frantically for days on end about Satoko's problem, and finally, with no options, we gave up and had it solved in one night. But myself without anyone's help. Right now, Satoko would be making dinner for her uncle, despite not knowing when he'd return, and she might be spending the night trembling in fear whether he'd yelled at her for how it tasted. But her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath, nor let him make her feel sad. I see. I did it. I successfully saved Satoko. All I've been thinking about for a long time was killing that man. The feeling that it was actually all to save her. I did. I did something good. That's right. I did something good, didn't I? I felt hot tears coming from my eyes. And then when I realized that the exhaustion I had been feeling was actually guilt. Be right back. The blade of guilt, for a while now, had just been scraping away with its tips, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad, I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much. It was so painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at saving Satoko. I didn't know why, really, anymore. I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there, coming to terms with those warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. Alright, Keiji Maibara, that's enough. There's nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both my body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It was only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow, and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. There was an undisputable fact that I had saved Satoko. One day, we would surely be rewarded. One day, I would feel proud of how distressing an enterprise I had undertaken to get Satoko's smile back. And so, I could wait for that day. I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I had left it undone, everything I accomplished today would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. Then I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth energy from my core again. How long did I plan on spacing out? This isn't time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse this very moment. That pessimistic thought was proof the very natural emotion of fear had returned to me. As I allowed fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate I remember what it looked like around the streetlight the body was near. How dark it was quite possible I wouldn't be able to look for it either. I didn't realize that when I left the place, so the idea of memorizing the spot hadn't crossed my mind. And that's why I had to call it unfortunate that I managed to get back to the body like this. The corpse was now located in a big muddy puddle. Half the thing had already sunk into the swamp-like pool of water. I only realized afterwards there was an unused irrigation channel right nearby, clogged within fallen leaves and dirt, and there was rainwater flowing from there. My shoes had been awash from water for a long time now, so without any hesitation, I stepped into the puddle. The whole muddy stream started flowing back, luckily. I couldn't leave any slight traces like bloodstains. The rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying very close attention, then could turn off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments, and once I managed to reach the streetlight on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was even looser here than I thought, and the shovel's tips easily slid inside it. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. It almost felt like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was almost easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water kept flowing in, covering the hole. The digging wasn't going as well as I hoped. I dug and dug, and the water would go in, so I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way for me to measure was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine. It's alright, don't be disheartened. Dig, dig, dig. Occasionally a car would come by on the road, and I'd have to hurry and hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. They wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but I still couldn't help but hide. What I was really scared of wasn't quite the one that one of those cars would coincidentally happen to witness me here. It was that distance I could spot cars was gradually getting shorter. At first I noticed the splashing sounds from really far away as the cars drove through them. I started noticing them less and less. And with the car that just passed by, I didn't notice until its headlights were on me. I felt my senses were growing duller by the second. If someone were to take a peek in secret, as I was burying the body at the worst possible time, I wouldn't even notice. The time I thought that, I took a good look all around me. I roused all my half-sleep senses and searched for signs of presence nearby. What if I found out someone was spying on me from the trees? A carnivorous feeling snarled at me, glaring. If there was, then I would have to dig another hole. I've come this far already. In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much I had to pay. I didn't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but it was definitely a fervently glaring one. My five senses reached the conclusion that nobody was present. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief. How long have I been digging this mud out of here? It was deep enough for it to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough. Maybe I throw in the corpse in as a test. I swallowed, getting my breath under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse. So instead, I dragged it to my feet to the hole. It took more than just a waggle and a tug to do it. But of course it did. Considering this man's weight, it was easily 80 kilograms. I rallied all my strength and dragged him. At this point, my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving again had vanished long ago. His body fit perfectly into the muddy hole. It was more deep than enough. Alright, let's bury him. Quickly, quickly, quickly. If I did a perfect job burying it here, everything would be over. I would hide it in the hole, and none of this would ever have happened. I realized I only had a little farther to go to finish everything. I was racked with pointless anxiety, like I was in a race against time. It was like I was absorbed in a delusion that if I didn't bury the body, it might come back to life. In any case, in a great rush, I poured the mud and dirt into the hole. If I didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Until now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill them, but not anymore. I was arrested with such absolute fear that if someone saw me, it would be over. As I finished the work off, it was a total mess. Splish splash, squish squash. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. I was completely covered in mud at that point. The rain washed the mud off my body, but not off my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, with fear, with rain and sweat and mud. My shoulder heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat down in the mud. I was so exhausted I wanted to lie down right here and sleep. It was over. This time. For real. It was over. The man was now at the bottom of the wet dirt. Right this moment, there were traces that this place had been dug up, but the rain and flowing muddy water would have completely covered it all within moments. Yes, it was over. I did it. I did it. I did it. And then I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrop pelted my face without mercy. I didn't care. After staying there for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. So let's go home. You already buried the whole thing, so now it's like it's never happened. It's never happened, so there's no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. I considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. I really needed to take it apart away. Dragging the shovel behind me, I headed towards the light. I stood up my bike, and it had been laying in the grass by the road. I didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel in the front basket. I put the shovel down the back of my shirt like I'd done with the baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner of it was on my back, making it very painful. Plus, if I relaxed my posture even a little, it would fall out behind me. I ended up having to carry the shovel in my left hand and ride my bike using only my right hand. Now was I in a state of total exhaustion. This was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars. I was swaying to and fro like a drunk, but I didn't care. Even swaying like this, I got a little closer to home every time I pedaled. I saw two lights slowly swaying in front of me. A car approaching. Oh no! I need to get out of the way! From far away in the shadows of the darkness, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights walked over me. The driver made a short honk of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I didn't have to get out of the way. I kept telling myself, but not only was I riding one-handed, but I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. Wobble, 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 wobble. I meandered about, not only going to the right nor left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way to the right in front of me without lowering its speed much. Steadily came towards me. Oops. Its outline grew larger in my vision, and telling myself again that I really needed to get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction, then lost my balance and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out. One foot got caught in the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished just as a cold sweat broke out my skin. The driver recklessly spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, and came to the right above me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened, and the drivers came out. You idiot, what are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that. Oh my, look who it is. It was a woman's voice, and one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her. Oh. Takano-san. Good evening. The moon is very pretty tonight, Maibara-kun. It was raining too hard to see the moon. Takano-san unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. That smile was for some reason uncanny, and she'd seen right through me. Out of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling that this was the one I wanted to see the least. What are you doing out so late? And you're soaked covered in mud and no umbrella either. What is that? A shovel? She had come here via a car. She wouldn't have known what I was doing. And yet she smiled, as though she knew everything. Calm down, Keiji Maibara. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her on to anything, lest you dig your own grave. The rumors say you were playing baseball with a golf club. Is that what the shovel was for, too? You're using it as an umbrella. I should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out. When I went with Rena to go digging for treasure at the dam, we forgot this here. And you went to get in this downpour? When I left my house, I didn't think it would rain, so... Oh, it's been raining here for a while, though. You've been out for quite some time, haven't you? Well, yes, I was kind of wandering around. Even so, you came from that direction, didn't you? The dam is in the opposite direction, you know. Takano-san was clearly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening to me. And as she played as her little word games, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess just from the situation of what I've been doing. My timing really stinked. To run into her, of all people, of all the times. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I'd done so much, and the end was literally right around the corner. So why at the very end did I run into her? Her of all people. What do you do, Keiji Maibara? You're holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano-san? Even if if it would be simple to kill Takano-san, dealing with the car she come in afterwards would be an issue. I couldn't drive a car. It was completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there were no proof I killed her, in tonight's downpour without any prior planning, all by coincidence, a hit and run. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. A black flame quietly smoldered in rage in the core of my body. That's a scary look. Did I tease you too much? Takano-san started to laugh by herself, then thankfully stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my mind didn't go away. Leaving that aside, how long are you planning crawling on the ground with your bike like that? Would you mind moving out of the way? If she moved, she would leave. So I tried to get my bicycle out and out of the way, but then twisted my ankle and then fell over. Ow! There was a sharp pain in my ankle. I twisted. This is nonsense. A sprained ankle now? Oh my, are you alright? Did you twist your ankle? Takano-san squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I keep rubbing. And she compares to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was. Can you stand? Ugh. God. I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could do shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano-san looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door, and then gave me her shoulder to stand up with. I'll take you home. I do feel bad since it's almost like I hit you. I'm sorry. I wouldn't just leave you here. It's a good thing I'm a nice person, hee. Nobody good has ever called himself a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone who's holding me up like this. I took Takano-san's hand and sat down in the passenger seat. Takano-san went around the back and looked on my bike on the ground. I don't suppose we could take the bike home tomorrow? I could clearly tell her face that she thought it would be a pain, since it would be heavy and it would get her car dirty. And my bike has the name Maibara in it. I couldn't even leave it out here like this. Well, can you somehow put it in the car? I sort of need it. The trunk is already full. If I put it in the back seat, it'll get the seats dirty with mud. Well, given how you're already in here, it's already dirty, I suppose. I turn back to the seat and see someone's folding bicycle there already. It looks big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thought seemed to go through to her. Alright. I'll put it in here for you. I'll be really nice, but just for tonight, okay? Takano-san continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but she couldn't do something about that eerie smile of hers. And even more importantly, I didn't want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could directly be directly connected to the buried body and to me. Sorry to ask another favor, but could you get my shovel too? Takano-san clearly gave me a clearly dubious expression. Your shovel? That's fine with me. Is it important? The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually, outlasted by the silence, Takano-san gave a short shrug and sighed. Alright, I understand. You need your shovel, right? You don't need to make such a mean face. Takano-san brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. I clutched it like I'd never let go of it again. Takano-san watched me with a puzzled look. Okay, let's be off. Maibara-kun, you live at Maibara Mansion, don't you? Why does everyone call my house the Maibara Mansion? Because it's actually a mansion. It must be nice to be rich. As she spoke, Takano-san pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making this skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. From the rear view mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness. Oh, that's a nice view. Ride? Huh? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that? Takano-san suddenly tried to say something to me, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano-san said the same thing one last time. The body? How well was it buried? I thought my heart might beat out of my chest, but I didn't let it show. But my lungs were squeezed tight and I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about? When burying bodies in mountains like these, you have to bury fairly deep because wild dogs will often smell the corpse and dig it out. And some human bone a wild dog brings back in its mouth leads to an incident being uncovered. The police head out a stretch to the mountains. It's actually it happens pretty often, you know. Hee. Pound, pound, clang, clang. Huge rusted bells started ringing in my head. Had I buried it so deep that I could say it was absolutely wouldn't be found, the answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with that I couldn't deny any possibility having buried it too close to the surface. No. Wait. Anyway, this woman, how does she know? Has she just passed by in her car by coincidence? We ran into each other by coincidence? Had she been watching the entire thing from the tree? And once I left, she came back in her car? It didn't make logical sense. So then, why? Peiji Maibara. That's it. You need to kill her. My body reawakened, and I could feel my pupils dilate. I couldn't possibly beat her to death within a shovel in such a small car. Then I would use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I could strangle her, we might get into an accident. Oh no. Oh wait. Yeah, then suddenly Takano-san turned and looked at me. What? No witty retort? For a moment, I was surprised what she was talking about. It seemed like we're not a very good match, Takano-san said, disappointing her gaze ahead. I repeated the words she said, and then a few times in my head, I finally realized that she meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her no matter how many lies I told. Right now, if we're driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I would have an even harder time doing it when we got back to my house. That moment we met had been my best chance. And to have missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Takano-san didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? With everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off. And at the very end of it all, I had just go home and back to sleep with what bad luck. As my sleepiness gradually overtook me, the anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. Is it alright, Keiji Maebara? You probably should not leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm tired. She stepped on the brakes and jerked against my seatbelt, and that woke me up. I thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. I looked out the window and there was a big building with faint lights on. It was really dark out, but I knew immediately it was my house. I'll go get your folks for you. Would you mind the place for a few moments while I'm gone? Don't make fun of me, please. Besides, look, I'm fine now. I can walk by myself. Oh my. You were in such pain that you had to get me to carry you. Did you just want a pretty lady to be nice to you? As Takano-san spoke, she left the car and opened her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I twisted. And there was some pains and a little weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted the whole thing, and I hadn't twisted my ankle. I could have still taken the option of killing Takano-san right then and there. There probably wasn't much doubt that Takano-san was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. If she knew about everything happening with Satoko, then she might have guessed I killed somebody. Click. Takano-san opened the passenger side door for me. You're sure you don't need my shoulders? I wouldn't mind doing it for you again. I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car by myself. The rain was still pretty intense. I got my bicycle out of the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I let Takano-san hold the umbrella over me and push my bicycle up to the front door. Thank you very much. I'll be fine now. My ankle hurt so much earlier, but it still did. But it aggravated me that it hadn't even been that bad. It was seriously really It was really seriously terrible luck. Alright, I'll be leaving then. Keep it a secret that we had a nice evening drive together by ourselves, okay? Hehe, especially from Jiro-san. Jiro-san? Oh, she meant Tomitake-san. I suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name is Jiro Tomitake, then. And then, the other bike, the folding one in the back seat. I didn't care about it at first, suddenly came to mind. Hey, excuse me, you're from Hinamizawa, right? On the day before yesterday, as I walked near the dam, half asleep, Tomitake-san had talked to me. And the bicycle he'd been riding, it was... That bicycle in the back belonged to Tomitake-san, doesn't it? Takano's eyes, I think they had sharpened for a moment. And why do you think that? I saw it when I met him before. The frame stood out to me. But wouldn't that be odd? Do you think it's possible for me to be Jiro-san's bike? Odd, huh? Takano-san, her hair elegantly fluttering, peers into my eyes. Well, there are no bed and breakfast in Hinamizawa, are there? Jiro-san would need to be staying in town. Is that so? Well, I guess that's right, huh? You can't really walk from town to Hinamizawa, can you? And there are no buses either. You at least need a bicycle. She didn't need me to tell that. She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro-san was riding his bike. For Jiro-san's bicycle to be stolen in my car? And him not in there? That would be strange, wouldn't it? It would mean Jiro-san was in Hinamizawa without a bike. Then I had to have left Jiro-san somewhere and put his bike in the car, wouldn't I? It wouldn't make sense. As she spoke, Takano-san's eyes like a hawk. Unfortunately, I didn't really understand what was so odd. What about that is odd? Aren't you and Tomitake-san friends? I don't really think it would be strange for there to be some reason you had this bicycle in your car, but it would be. What I mean is Jiro-san and his bicycle being in different places in Hinamizawa wouldn't make sense. And for those reasons, it means his bicycle can't be his. Do you understand now? Takano-san's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, that vague dreadfulness I didn't like at all. But the most wild, instinctive part warned me not to pry. That's my bicycle. Jiro-san picked it out for me though, so I can't deny that it looks alike. Ah, I see. I see now. I thought it looked similar. You and I never saw each other tonight. And then she was talking about something completely different. What are you talking about? You and I never saw each other tonight. I stayed there not knowing what to say, and Takano-san repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again. You and I never met this night. You and I never saw each other tonight. Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew because I killed a person with my own hands before. But before I came to the conclusion that I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet, I couldn't hesitate. So I could tell that she arrived at the very same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. I wish I had never met this woman. The faint sense of a rotten smell drifting from this woman was no doubt the exact same sense that I was giving off right now. A very peculiar aspiration. The lack of uncertainty at taking a human's life for a purpose. that only those who have risen above everything had. Actually, maybe I should have called it a nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain this very well, but Takano-san was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't been here, someone I couldn't have let anybody know was here, someone who nobody would want to see, and now that we openly calmly pretend as though we never met. Yes, which meant that, just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so that we never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Takano-san's suggestion was extremely practical. And that I couldn't outright refuse. If that's fine with you, then sure, whatever. You and I didn't meet this night. You're right. That would be best for you too, wouldn't it? Why do you think that? Are you seriously asking me that? You can't figure out that out on your own, boy? She cut me off with a condescending word, boy. Right in front of my house, in a place most unsuited for killing. And yes, there was a frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. Yes, then I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out my own body. That's fine if you want me, then you can come any time. And when I made up my mind, she shook her hair elegantly, and I turned on her heel. Good. I am a kind person after all. What was good? How? Because she was a kind person, was that it? I didn't get it. Takano-san got into her car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I had performed a massive feat, the killing of Satoko's uncle, and yet I didn't feel any accomplishment on the holy night of Oyashiro-sama's curse, on which the taking on of another's life was allowed. On the terribly rainy night when demons wandered as agents of Oyashiro-sama's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly they did. The demons have parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano-san through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her, far too late. That first moment, the very first moment we saw each other, had been my best chance, and now we had parted like this. I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly and then drove away from the deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared in the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something and fly into the face of a tree. And die. That wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish. Yes, it was a command. Die. Die. And keep your mouth shut for eternity, because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Takano-san, tail's light disappeared into the utter darkness. Her car lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain was inaudible now. I, too, turned onto my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking towards the front door, and I was covered in mud, and I made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish, squish. Don't worry, Kejimai, but squish, squish. She'll die. Squish, squish. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into the flames alive and let her dance until she burned to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes to the fires of the underworld itself until she's roasted as much as she's deserved. I wish. I really do. Squish. Huh? Just now, I hadn't taken a step, and yet a footstep. Without emotion, I turned around. If there was a footprint that wasn't my own, and it was obvious someone else behind me, was somebody else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I got sick of everything tonight. This time, I would kill them. I killed them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But, fortunately, there was nobody there. I wasn't going to have to kill any more people tonight. This night, I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I had heard an extra footstep each time, I stopped and put it down just to me being tired. Well, this was a long one. Yeah, I think these are... Yeah, let me check. Yeah, it looks like one more tip to go, and then I get the achievement for that. Hello? Do you need the hospital or the fire department? The fire department. Is there a fire or some other accident? Please speak slowly and calmly. I think it's a fire. This is the rest area on the highway. I can see a ton of fire and smoke coming from the mountains behind us. Nobody goes back there, so I don't know why anything lit on fire. Anyway, I think I should let you know. It could turn into a forest fire. I understand. I need to know exactly where you are, so please tell me your name, a phone number we can use to get in touch with you, and the exact location of the fire. Notice from the fire department headquarters, we have a report of a suspicious fire on the western slopes of the mountain. Given its distance, the road, it could be a couple's bonfire, someone unlawfully burning trash. The location is deep within the woods. No homes in the area, but the fire could spread. Immediately go to the site to verify. Is this the fire station? This is the district fire department branch. We arrived moments ago at the reported area. Fire confirmed to be a burning oil drum left in the mountains. Fire is calming, and there's no chance it will spread. And, well, in the oil drum, I think it might be a person. Like a person burned with kerosene or something. Well, I think maybe we should get the police over here. There's no mistaking it. This is a person. Eek! Oh, I think we know who that person is. This year's curse, then? That's what it looks like. He kills them differently every year, but this is particularly conspicuous, isn't it? Pulling out your own throat? That isn't normal. Let's leave the rest of the old man in forensic. I'm sure he'll find some suspicious drugs. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work. Oh, Oishi-san? Oishi-san? I'm having that same issue again. Komiyama-san and the others have arrived. Oishi-san, much appreciated. Well, it seemed like we have a pretty crazy one this year. Yes, we've been outsmarted. I was absolutely under the impression Teppei Hojo would get killed tonight. Who is this deceased? Jiro Tomitake, a photographer with a hobby for coming to Inamizawa this year. We didn't even have him marked. I wonder what happened. Did they realize we were watching the Hojo residents the whole time and decided to switch their targets? Maybe we sure flubbed this one. And there are no problems with Teppei Hojo. Correct, his daughters left for the festival in the evening, and a little later he left on his motorbike. His daughter came back first. Wait, has he not come back yet? Is he still out drinking somewhere? Oishi-san, are you there? Call from Chief Takasuki. He's on the line in car 1. I guess I'll just end the stream since I feel like it'll be like midnight when I finish this next chapter. So tomorrow, let's hope for the finale for this chapter, and then on Monday I could finish off the first half and then wait next year, because yeah, I would assume Matsuri Bayashi would come this next year, since Minagoroshi just came out a few months ago. And I got a little surprise that might shock you guys after I finish. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.